will be going through, just as a FYI, going through a zone change on this property, making it all R14. I met with staff and attorney, et cetera. The recommendation was to do a zone change to R14, 1.5 times 14 is 21, minus the 2 buildings in the front, which will be considered as existing uses. That leaves us 18 as the number for this project. And that application has not gone in yet, but it will be before the end of the month. We are calling this the Spanish Pueblo style. There is nothing territorial about this project, as indicated. Some of the comments that we took to heart: the doors that we show on the application are not panelized. They're all the bullnose details being shown, as well as the parapets hiding the mechanical equipment. We added protection over the doorways. All of the streetscape, or all of the details for this project, are in the internal courtyard as before. Most of them, if not all of them, will not be seen by the public unless they enter back into the property. We listed several different colors. We haven't chosen the final ones yet. I'm not sure if we have greater opinions on the final colors we choose or not, but we've selected a palette of 6 colors which we will match on the property when that decision is made. We also have 2 treatments of the core tile that we would like to discuss. We'll have the architect discuss those 2 styles. We haven't decided on either one of those yet also. And without further ado, I would like to introduce the architect of record, Steve McCormick. He will lead you through some of these changes in more detail. He is responsible for some of them. You need to come up here and swear in before you can talk to the commissioners. And can I show these up yet for him?
Yes, please.
I'll do that while he's sworn in.
Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
Steve McCormick, yes.
Yes, well, introduced you, so I figured we are good.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, so I'm working with Joaquin Cartru. I think a lot of you know on this project, and I'm the architect in Santa Fe. Let's see if we can get this leveled out a little bit here. Let's see. What you saw before was that there was an entry on the side of the project here. We are instead keeping all the vehicles to this part to get more room for our site plan down at the end. All the units have these portals which face the courtyards, and the more private spaces are to the outside. There was a concern about the massing of the project being too blocky and too modern before, so what we've done is we've broken it down with by adding portals to the front of each of them, and then also some bump outs and storage spaces that sort of engage the massing at the perimeter of the project.
Can you maybe turn them so that the people in the audience can see?
Let me take one down
Or-
and continue.
Here, or
I see the both.
did you want to pass?
Upside down.
We also have.
I just turn this one around.
This one
here.
shows the entire site.
Okay, great,
Or maybe,
thank you.
maybe if you put it perpendicular, maybe, then we could all
Yeah.
see. If that.
You could try.
Oh,
yeah.
I can say
They're on the-
we have them here.
Actually, we have a copy of that. We do.
We all got
So, and I don't think the audience does.
We don't want to disrupt your presentation, but we all have them. So
Okay.
it might be more useful for people in the audience also.
Mhm.
It's a little awkward for you, but
Yeah, down there is better, yeah.
Let's see, I got 2 more.
that's all, isn't it?
We have
always
the whole
the way? Yeah, we have the whole packet.
Well, maybe one at a time, because,
Maybe one at a time.
yeah,
Yeah.
if you take this one down, so we could relate with, and keep this one up, please. Keep that one up, and take the other one down, please.
Or you could use it at one of the,
Or whichever one you're working on.
It's a
It's just a
background.
little awkward, isn't it?
It is awkward for that,
There you
yeah.
go. We will be going through, just as a FYI, going through a zone change on this property, making it all R14. I met with staff and attorney, et cetera. The recommendation was to do a zone change to R14, 1.5 times 14 is 21, minus the two buildings in the front, which will be considered as existing uses. That leaves us 18 as the number for this project. And that application has not gone in yet, but it will be before the end of the month. We are calling this the Spanish Pueblo style. There is nothing territorial about this project, as indicated. Some of the comments that we took to heart, the doors that we show on the application are not panelized. They're all the bullnose details being shown, as well as the parapets hiding the mechanical equipment. We added protection over the doorways. All of the streetscape or all of the details for this project are in the internal courtyard as before. Most of them, if not all of them, will not be seen by the public unless they enter back into the property. We listed several different colors. We haven't chosen the final ones yet. I'm not sure if we have greater opinions on the final colors we choose or not, but we've selected a palette of 6 colors which will match on the property when that decision is made. We also have 2 treatments of the floor tile that we would like to discuss. We'll have the architect discuss those 2 styles. We haven't decided on either one of those yet also. And without further ado, I would like to introduce the architect of record, Steve Mccormick. He will lead you through some of these changes in more detail. He is responsible for some of them. You need to come up here and swear in before you could talk to the commissioners. And can I shuffle these up yet for him?
Yes, please.
I'll do that while he's sworn in.
Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
Steve McCormick, yes.
Yes, you will. Introduce you, so I figured we are good.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, so I'm working with Joaquin Karcher, who I think a lot of you know on this project, and I'm an architect in Santa Fe. Just going to get this leveled out a little bit here. Let's see. What you saw before was that there was an entry on the side of the project here. We are instead keeping all the vehicles to this part to get more room for our site plan down at the end. All the units have these portals which face the courtyards, and the more private spaces are to the outside. There was a concern about the massing of the project being too blocky and too modern before, so what we've done is we've broken it down with by adding portals to the front of each of them, and then also some bump outs and storage spaces that sort of engage the massing at the perimeter of the project.
Can you maybe turn them so that the people in the audience can see?
Let me take one down
Or-
and continue. Carl, is
Here,
there one
or
more?
did you want to pass it?
We also have
If I just turn this one around
This one
here.
shows the entire site.
Okay,
Yeah.
great,
Or
thank
maybe,
you.
maybe if you put it perpendicular, maybe, then we could all
Yeah.
see. If that.
We could try.
I don't
Oh,
even,
yeah.
I can say.
We have them here.
Actually, we have coffee.
This.
You do.
We all got,
So, and I don't think the audience does.
we don't want to disrupt your presentation, but we all have them. So
Okay.
it might be more useful for people in the audience also.
Mhm.
A little awkward for you, but.
Yeah, down there is better,
Let's see, I got 2 more.
That's all, isn't it always the way? Yeah, we have the whole packet.
Well, maybe one at a time, because,
Maybe one at a time.
yeah.
Yeah.
If you take this one down, so we could relate and keep this one up, please. Keep that one up. And take the other one down, please.
Or you could use one of the,
Or whichever one you're working on.
As a
It's
background.
just a little awkward, isn't it?
It is awkward for that,
There you
yeah.
go.
How about this?
Put it down here like this, and you can stand in front of them and point.
What is quickest way I
But
can.
we don't need, we have a drawing, we have it in front of us, a few addresses, and we'll.
Address these people?
Sure.
All
I
right.
have a question. Ms. Todd, are you the only one in the audience that's, or the other two gentlemen, are you here for this case or a different one? Different one? Maybe Ms. Todd would want to come up here a little bit closer so she can see
Yeah,
them.
I can hand her one of these, I have an extra one.
Oh, great, that's good, that's great, that'll solve that.
Oh,
Okay. All right, so,
Okay.
yeah, just
I'm
get.
gonna move into the elevations of the project that are seen from the outside. Wait a minute, we'll start with this. The post office elevation might be the most important, because everybody goes to the post office, right? So, these two units, these two fourplexes are these two right here. So the elevation matches up with the site plan. And you can see that what we've done is broken it down with pushing and pulling these masses against each other. That we've added these storage spaces at the corners of the project in order to break down the massings. And we played with color across the whole composition in order to, again, to break it down so it's not quite so monolithic. We have also a utility building here for the maintenance staff of the complex to use, and that's this volume here. We also have a place for the mailboxes and to stay out of the rain right there, and that's what this shape is here beyond. Also, there's a fence that runs the length of the property between the post office and our project, and it's broken up using both wood fence and stucco wall, because it's very long, it's an extremely long fence, and we're trying to break down the massing of the project a little bit.
And that's not shown on the plan.
Well, no,
Okay.
it could just happen right at the property.
Property line.
Yeah.
All right.
These are setbacks, these dots.
Okay.
One other thing about this south elevation of the project is that we are worried about overheating because this project is super energy efficient. And so we are going to propose awnings on the larger windows on the south elevation. And those are the red bits that you see there. You'll see them in greater detail on the wall section. But these will just occur where we have to put them, again, in order to prevent overheating, mostly on the south elevation, perhaps on the west elevations as well. So I'll keep going. It's just interrupt me if you guys need to. These are the other four elevations of the project. Again, overall, from the outside. This is the elevation from the El Pueblo Lodge. It's a very hard one to see because, as you know, the El Pueblo Lodge pretty much runs the property line to the north of the project. This one would be the rear elevation, the west side. And this one would be the front elevation. If you were to walk through the parking area, this is what you'd see as you approach the complex from Paseo del Pueblo. Yeah. Here's our wall section with our awnings that we're proposing, just where we need them. We battered the parapets in order to give them more Pueblo massing. You can see that in this wall section here. You can see the deep openings at the windows, the deep recesses. We've got a 14-inch thick wall before stucco. So we've got plenty of depth to pull our windows in and give a good bonus to the outside.
It shows the heat pump.
Oh, thank you. There was a concern about the mechanical equipment being visible, and we have a 2-foot parapet, and we have our mechanical equipment at the center of each of our groups of 4, and it's only 2'10" high, so it would be impossible to see the mechanical equipment from anything except the helicopter. Right, and so here we're we're getting into the nitty-gritty, into the detail here of the individual units. What we've got is 2 units downstairs and 2 units upstairs. All we're showing you is a ground floor plan because the second floor plan is virtually identical. We went with canales on the lower volumes because we don't want to deal with the internal roof drain there, we don't think. But on the big volumes, we're proposing to bring the water to the middle there, bring it down the party wall and get it out. We haven't worked out exactly how.
No, because you show your crickets on the roof plan, both to the extreme left and extreme right, and then you have your little circles on the inside.
You're right.
So it's
My crickets don't agree with my circle.
your drains.
You're right.
All right. But they're internal, that's the answer.
Internal.
And you have the internal overflow also then?
Yes.
Okay.
So we feel like we've addressed all the concerns of the board, and we'd like you guys to approve it.
We got some comments. I'm sure.
It's beautiful, right?
Would anyone else like to speak to this case before we all have discussion, or you're welcome to at any point, after or now, whatever's.
Maybe they could be part of the discussion, because I'd like to hear what the board has to say. And then...
Okay, let's hear from the commission first, and then I'm going to call from the audience. Commissioners, do you have any comments to make on
Yes,
this
I do,
application?
and I have some questions of staff.
Okay, this is Commissioner Choma.
Yes. Well, I decided to go ahead and actually refresh myself when it came to code, because we serve on this commission and we try to do our best, but time passes, and sometimes, it's a good thing to refresh what we are subject to. And what prompted that, and bear with me, is that we made a request in our last meeting on another subject on whether we can streamline approvals in certain instances. And the answer was, I came back from the town attorney, paragraph such and such in code is clear, and it was verbatim by the code book. And the answer was, even if it made sense, can't do it. Gotta go by the code book. So a light went on, and I went, wow. We're subject, the commission is subject to code as much as the applicants are subject to code. And there was not an indication of flexibility. So I went a little further and I said, well, when it comes to certificate of appropriateness and the process, that is completely discussed in code. And it starts with staff, planning and zoning, and the verification, the code administrator. Before anything comes to this commission, the way the process is indicated in the code book is that the administrator verifies that that package is complete, so that the commission doesn't say, oh, this and this is missing. That needs to occur, and also that it conforms to code. We've had some changes more than once in staffing here at Planning and Zoning, and so there were these transitional periods that went on. And so I think a couple of meetings ago I mentioned that it might be a good thing that we regroup and refocus, because there was a whole lot of this going on, and allowances for these transitional times. When I continue to go through it, my first question from staff is, who is the person, who is the code administrator at this point in time?
It is myself.
It's yourself?
Yes.
Okay. So then I went through, last but not least, because we've been discussing introduction of different or variations into the historic district and even the overlay. Okay? So I went further into it. And so my questions are these. What I got out of the code book, my understanding, we can verify that here and now, is that it's not up to the commission to verify whether it complies with code or not, nor can we, in fact, do we have the latitude to make changes to the existing code, even if we really like the project in front of us. That was an eye-opener for me. So it starts with the person verifying code, and it needs to be a complete packet before we ever see it and before we call a meeting on it. Number two, just because of the answer from the town attorney on the one question we had, which is not directly related, the answer was important in that he totally said the code is clear, this is what it says, no variation. If you want a variation, you have to go in there and make an applicant to decide as a commission you want it, and it has to be brought. It has to go through due process. Town of Taos, and it has to be approved. So I want to double check before we go any further on this. The last thing that I noticed is that and we worked on this, I want you to know this, that we worked on variations to include and allow more flexibility. This commission put in time and effort. Where it sits is that this was never presented to the town council to date, and code remains as it was. So that prompted me to look back into, okay, what does the code allow for architecture in the historic district, the historic overlay, whether it's contributory or non-contributory? We have those few architectural styles itemized, and also the detail for those architectural styles. They are clearly spelled out to be evocative of the historical district, you know, down to the portals, to the detailing, to the recessed windows, to the thickness of the walls. And the Historical Preservation Commission especially deals with preserving those architectural details as indicated in code for the historical overlay. That is what we are charged to do via the code. Right now, so I am not sure where we stand with this. This is a worthy project. It's a wonderful project. This has gone so much further than the last presentation. But for instance, the first presentation, in effect, from what I just discussed, was not complete. Now we're a step further. What we have now, however, is essentially a contemporary interpretation of Pueblo. And what we really need to find out is where we're at, code-wise, to even have the ability as a commission to implement that. That's base bottom line. And the last thing that I looked for that is indicated in the code book, and I'm willing to go through with whomever wishes to look at the few pages here that specifically discusses the HPC and what we're charged to do, are specific close-up indications of the architectural elements that exist throughout the historic district. Do they exist in the non-conforming or non-contributory building? Sorry, not non-conforming, non-contributory property that is about to be erected. So giving you that background and history, I really am asking the question of staff and where we're at before, going any further. And this might be something that staff may want to check with the town attorney and see where we're really at with this. What is our level of adherence to that code? I can tell you this, that code was quoted verbatim when we had a question, and there was no flexibility. Do we have flexibility of introducing a different style now if it is not included in the code? That's
Commissioner
where I
Choma.
need to check in.
Commissioner Choma, staff has written in the staff report that this commission needs to decide whether or not the proposed drawings are consistent with the design guidelines in section 16.16.220.8 and compatible with the spirit and purpose of the Historic District Overlay. That's what we're being charged with right now.
Yeah, there are some elements that are. And yet when we go through the entire list of that architectural style, there are elements that are not.
They're not present.
Okay. When we go through the description in the code book, because it's this size. Okay. When we go through the description in the code book, there's an earlier section. There are standards for non-contributing properties, consistent style of new construction. The appropriate style for new construction should be consistent with the predominant type and style of architecture, yes. Of the streetscape, yes. But when we are called to fall back on, to refer to the architectural styles that are allowed, they are specific, and then from there in the code book it goes into describing the details that need to be there that are evocative of that style, even if it's new architecture. So it's really a question from me and possibly the entire commission to staff to double check on the interpretation of code in this instance, for a number of reasons. And one of them, truly, I want you all to know that we did a significant amount of think work over a good period of time to allow more flexibility than we have in the existing code. But in order for that to be implemented, it had to have been brought before the town council and approved. And that didn't happen. It has not happened to date. And that's why I just really suggest that we really double check on this. It's not up to me to define code for you. We'd like it defined.
And in terms of architectural style, the commission has 2 licensed architects sitting on it, and so I'd like to hear from them.
No, that's...
But your question about appropriate architecture and someone can
No,
easily
my
be answered
question
by
is I think we need to look back at our flexibility and our what we are able to do, what we are subject to this code book. And I would like an interpretation of how much flexibility we have to this code book. We have architects on this commission, but the architects on this commission and myself, I've been a designer for years, love certain projects. And we do not have them written into code for specifically for the historic district. We tried. We have not accomplished that. So, I had to bring that up, because better now than to bring it up somewhere down the line. And so I'm simply asking staff to, define that, and possibly the town attorney as to where we sit with them. How close are we, as a commission, subjected to line by line what is stated in the code book? There are various sections that refer to it. To take one paragraph out of context will not do it. We have those architectural styles defined, and then we have the details that contribute and create that architectural style. very well defined, and a call in the code book to continue those details.
Certainly not every detail on every project. I mean, these are appropriate details to that style, but it's not
Correct.
like we have to use
In the code book,
Okay.
as defined in the code book.
Right, so those are appropriate details to those styles, but it's not prescribing that we must include every one of those details in every project.
No, but if you are, what it does do is say, okay, you're allowed Pueblo revival, you're allowed boom, 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 boom. Each one has a defined specific set of architectural details.
Okay, Commissioner Chelmo, do you have a direct question for staff?
I did. I
Okay.
asked that question.
Do you understand the question that she's asking, and can you respond to it, please?
I must admit, I think her question is several questions, if
Mhm.
I'm understanding this correctly. And the actual, you're talking about new construction, so it's my understanding from reading the code that two different styles can be chosen from, the way I read the code. And then within that, there's different things that the code is requesting that you look at. And as the architect has pointed out, not all the features that are listed there are mandatory, nor must all those features be included. It's the overall experience, or how does it meet the intent of like the territorial style, for example. With new construction, I don't think you'll ever get it looking like, you know, that new building has been there for, 100 years. So the other question that she was asking is, what is the commission's power here? And that is specified under the Certificate of Appropriateness in 16.16.220.12. And so she's right, an application comes in for a certificate of appropriateness. It's supposed to be on the forms that the town provides. The application should be complete. I agree that we do have an issue with obtaining complete applications, which for me as staff makes it much harder to write these staff reports. And it's hard because we have limited staff, but it wouldn't be the same even if we had a lot of staff, to make sure that we have all the details and we know the details in order to write a complete staff report, or going through all the sections of the code and providing, documentation as to why staff feels a project meets or does not meet the intent of the code. It says that the commission here has a preliminary hearing and that there's a final hearing. And the commission shall approve of modifications or conditions, deny or suspend an application in whole or in part. So I read that the commission actually has the power in the final public hearing. And then we have to provide notification of the commission's decision, and that notification has to be made within 15 days. Then there's I haven't read the rest of the code here,
No.
but
Here's one section, if I may, 16.220-8.8. Item D, design standards for architectural style of new construction for non-contributory. At the discretion of the Historic Preservation Commission, all new construction shall comply with the design standards of one of the following architectural styles, and those being the ones that are enumerated. A combination of new construction includes additions to contributing property. That's all included. A combination of styles may be permitted at the discretion of the Historic Preservation Commission, provided that the design meets the design standards for each style. So you can do a combination, but you still have to have those architectural elements, and then it goes into A, the Pueblo Spanish Revival style, and goes into all the details. It's right in here. You can just have a look at it, for yourself. And then that's what it's saying. Okay, you can do that, but you got to do it like this. And that's where, and it's specific. And since we got this answer to a simple streamline question, that it was just literally out of a paragraph of the code book, I'm like, whoa, is this how it is? And it may be, and I'd like to find out if it is. How much flexibility do we have?
I think for me, that question's been answered already tonight. I would just, thank you, Commissioner Choma. Commissioner Lucas has something he'd like to say.
I don't know exactly what's been happening here, but I think we're wasting the applicant's time. This discussion like this, I think, is for another time. We need to deal with what's before us and move along.
Clearly, at some point, could be under matters from commissioners and can be continued there.
I'd like the floor.
Okay, Commissioner Palacios.
Okay, the project, I think, has come a ways from last time in terms of the nucleus of the buildings and clustering and so forth. As a historic preservation member, I'm concerned about the historic buildings on the site, that they're part of this property, and I want to see them, I want a statement. I would like to see them preserved, I'd like to see them stuccoed, I'd like to see them maintained. They're in a state of needing work. You already have two very nice old buildings that are in disrepair, and I think that some kind of statement should be made to that, and I'm a little suspicious, I don't understand, okay, so part and parcel of that is I don't understand why there would be a zoning change to a residential zoning or a request for that when the streetscape, which these two are, they are businesses right now, are a C zoning. So I think there should possibly be a proposed lot split in terms of zoning, but I'm not going to answer all that, but those are my concerns. In other words, I would like to see these buildings preserved, and I would recommend even going to the state SHPO, if you guys would like, to reinforce, which is the state historic. And then one more thing. Now you change the parking around, and it's in the middle, so if those buildings were ever taken down and so forth, I don't know what your intent is, but I like the intent stated as part of this proposal. You have this parking field. There's not a single shrub. I don't see any landscaping.
I'm sorry, there is landscaping plan.
But it wasn't submitted, was it?
It's not drawn.
Oh, well, I can't judge something that's not here. I mean, I don't want to see a field of asphalt between the old buildings, or if indeed they were to be raised, there's nothing but asphalt from the streetscape. So the charge of the whole site plan is my concern. In terms of the project, I don't have a big issue with it. I think architecturally you guys have made a contemporary statement. Your coloring, your massing, you've been responsive to the stuff that was recommended. But it's those two items, the existing buildings and the parking and all of the landscaping around it. I also then / landscaping, I don't see any civil stuff. So have the civil and the landscaper been dropped from the project, or are they still part of it?
They're not going to be done until this is done first. You don't
Well,
put money on civil until-
okay, but you understand my concern. My concern is the physicality of what your proposal and the totality of your proposal and the historic preservation of two beautiful structures that are there, what the intent is. You can't just blow by, concentrate on this, and not take care of those two items. That's my comment.
Mr. Yarovich, respond, and then I want to hear from Commissioner Prince, please.
Okay. Those two buildings are not contributing. That's already been determined over the years. Those are not contributing buildings in the front. But I did meet with staff and the town attorney to review the dilemma of a split lot zone that was zoned. That zoning went on long after the applicant, the owner, had owned these properties.
Okay.
And after we went through the process, with attorney and Ms. Perkins. The suggestion that we all agreed to that made the most sense was to do a zone change and leaving those two buildings with a conditional use permit as existing commercial structures, which is allowed, and which we'll be going through planning and zoning for. That's not part of the historical review process. Also, that is not part of the historical review process.
Excuse me, I'm looking at this project as a whole. I think as a commissioner, I have a right to look at it as a whole. That's your streetscape, and I want to know what's going on with it. And the technicalities of it I'm not going to discuss. I want to know in plain layman's language what's going on with those buildings. And I think they should be preserved. And when those designations were done, contributing and significant, that was in relationship to the whole town. We had most old buildings here, there's precious few. So I'm trying to keep them. And I, as an architect, have an eye for it, and I think that they're worthy of preserving. So I want a statement about it, not like we'll take care of it and it doesn't contribute and it doesn't count.
Wait.
Question.
Well, just hold on to it, because.
Anyway, the technicalities of it, go ahead.
The technicalities, I don't understand what the technicalities are. The owner has the right to preserve and protect those buildings, or he has the right to tear them both down.
But not without a permit.
Without us.
You need a permit
Permit,
to tear them down, yes, sir.
because they're non-conforming.
No, anyway.
Well, yes, you can get a deconstruction or a demolition from the town to tear down buildings,
And it'll be reviewed at that time then.
not by any, it's just reviewed at staff level.
Well, I would argue that point. Because the staff can decide whether or not we look at them.
For tearing down any.
Yes, sir.
building whatsoever.
Yes. I can give you an example. We just saved the building over by the lilac shop.
Torn down buildings.
We do have a right to say what should stay.
You can check the records. We actually did this less than 2 months ago on another project down the street.
It's a legal issue I'm not aware of, but I will
Well,
entertain the information.
If that's how we're approaching it, then do state your way to approach it. I'm trying to find out what's going on in the historic
Clearly
zone.
keep those buildings. The application going in through planning and zoning and town council will be for a zone change. And at that level is when we show the complete site plan and the infrastructure design, as well as the landscaping, and all of those things go into the zone change application with this application. We're here to proceed beyond this and do any more development work is a ludicrous concept. Until this is approved, or unless there's changes to be made to this to provide any more, sewer and water designs or some of the other things, it's not at that level. The next phase of planning and zoning for the zone change will require a lot of those things. But if you've made wholesale changes to this, why would we have spent time and energy on some of those?
Hey, wait a minute, Mark, excuse me. I'm not making wholesale changes. I'm asking the intent,
The intent
and
is
it's
to keep
okay to
those
ask for
buildings.
that. And we are involved in existing structures that are to be raised
Okay,
in the
well,
historic
the
district.
intent is clearly to keep both of those buildings.
Okay,
I'm making
so that's a statement, not as an implied.
As a
Okay,
statement.
okay.
The intent is to keep.
And
both of those.
to upgrade them.
They don't meet code.
Well,
Well, but they can be grandfathered in, excuse me, so they can be grandfathered in. I'm saying they're in a state of disrepair. Is there any intent to raise that level? That's my concern. It's a real concern. It's a fair question, I
It's a
mean.
fair question, and I
Okay.
will not answer that question. Mr. Tarleton may answer that
Okay.
if he wishes, but
Good.
when he asked if there was those, the idea of doing the zone change was a combination of ideas to make this work under the current zone, to go back and to do it as a PUD with a special use permit in the C2 area, because two of the buildings were going 40 feet over this imaginary commercial line. The split between the R14 and the commercial is drawn, and if you look at the adjacent properties, it doesn't even match any of the adjacent properties of where the commercial zone was or wasn't.
Okay,
And we looked at it with Mr. Brian James and Ms. Perkins, and reviewed the situation, and I spoke with the council about it, who knows the code very well, and says, it's clear that you do an R14 zone change, you will be allowed 18 units, the two buildings in front will be designated as existing non-conforming uses in this zone, and that's the best way to do this project, to make it fit the existing code as it stands. That's where this all came from.
Yeah, I haven't argued with, I don't argue with that.
So I'm answering
I
this.
want to know what you're going to do with them. If you're going to fix them up. I do. Why can't you answer that? Or I guess,
I
or
don't
can we,
know to
can we
go
ask
into,
it?
it's not my
Okay.
budget. Would you like to answer?
Well,
this?
I see a whole plot plan here. And those two buildings are part of this plot plan.
You also suggested that we do a lot split. which
I'm
is-
saying, no. I was wondering, wait, go back, sir. I was wondering why you would change a commercial property into a lesser division, which would be residential. Why you would change the whole property. And I said, I'm not involved in the technicalities. I'm worried about the physicality of what's there.
I'll answer
Of the
question on-
pre-existing structures.
On one of the buildings, I'll answer the question, the one that the Dr. Kilgore is in, he's been in there since the late 40s or something of that nature, I don't know. His agreement and his lease, he will stay there for as long as he exists as a doctor at a severely reduced rent, and he is in charge of his own maintenance of that building, taking care of it. His rent is nominal, and he is responsible. When he leaves that building, that will be the first opportunity for the owner to go in there and renovate that building.
I'm not in charge of the inside. I'm talking about this, I'm talking about the street of people. No, I'm talking about the
I'm
outside.
not saying the outside and the inside is the responsibility of the doctor in there, from what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong.
I'm not sure of that, sir.
Well, we
Why
have
don't
certain,
you answer that, because this, I might be misinterpreting
we
you.
have certain responsibilities.
Excuse me, Mr. Charlton, wait just a minute, please. You need to be sworn in. Thank you.
Michael Charles,
Okay, you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Dr. Kilgore's office, we have just, that property wasn't ours till, I don't even think it's ours yet. We're transferring that property from my cousins to the family right now. We're in that process. So that, Dr. Kilgore's office, and we know it needs some work on the outside, we have just acquired that property. It wasn't ours till, and it's just being turned over to us now.
Okay.
So we haven't had any opportunity to assess it or find out what we need to do there to preserve that building. But we will do that. And one of the problems is, like he says, the doctor is there. He has a very, very low rent that he's paying. He's taking care of a lot of the things himself, and we don't want to, we just don't have the money with that kind of a return to do a whole lot right now, but we will make plans to do some things. But we can't operate at a loss, is one of the problems.
I'm not asking you to operate it as a
Well,
loss.
I'm telling you what the problems are, and we're trying to work through those.
I understand. I'm just trying to understand the intent of the physical structures that are on the street that are significant, not in terms of classification, but as historic.
Well, that building was built as a residence in 1930, and it has a very good foundation and good walls and adobe, and the interiors are very good, and I think we can, do some work, and we do want, our intent is to keep it.
Okay, well,
My
that's all I'm
grandparents
asking.
built that house for their home, and we want to keep that building.
Correct. Well, thank you. That's all I'm asking, really, is what is the intent with the existing buildings?
Yeah, just for clarification, even for myself, I wish to ask of Commissioner Palacios. My understanding is that your concern is the continued maintenance and preservation of the two buildings that are existing up front as part of the original streetscape
Of the whole project?
in that location. Am I right about that? It's
Yes.
not usage, it's not about zoning, it's your concern is the continued maintenance and preservation of the two existing buildings.
Right.
The exterior, I'm not talking about all the interior.
And that can be, just for clarity, and, as far as we have, as a commission, had say in what can be demolished, what not, perhaps sections of a building to be kept if it was historic in other instances. And it could also, in fact, be made a consideration in the entire project as a condition. All those things are possibilities. So, so you don't know yet whether you intend to keep the buildings or you have a plan to demolish them, do
No,
you?
we have never had a plan to demolish those buildings.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
That's good.
We intend to keep them as
Okay.
buildings.
Thank you.
Commissioner Prince?
I think that the plan has come a long way. The buildings are substantially better, really. You're to be commended. I also share Commissioner Palacios' concerns about the historic structures. And I actually have a list of things that are going to be required in my mind that I think that we should add to the motion if this project goes forward, including a preservation plan and stabilization strategy for those two existing structures which are in a state of disrepair and which we've gone to other people and made them clean up their outsides of their structures. But it's mainly a stabilization plan. I'll just tell you right now what I'm looking for. I want to see a drawing of fencing locations relative to the existing buildings to protect the existing tenants. A wall removal plan for the existing stucco wall so the adjacent structures are protected from accidental damage. A detailed plan for driveway and landscape at the front, which includes an erosion and sediment control strategy and culvert plan to protect the historic acequia. And then I think that there needs to be some discussion about if you have established trees and how you're going to protect them. And I'd also like to know what the impact of the construction is going to be on parking and traffic patterns in the neighborhood. So I agree with him completely. I think that the preservation of these historic structures has been completely missed, and I think that that's a real shame because that's what we're here for. I mean, we can address your construction, which, I mean, honestly, I don't have that much to say about the buildings themselves anymore. I think they're beautiful. I think that you've made some real progress. But there's been an absolute lack of, and there's no way to say, I mean, you can pretend like bulldozers, vibrations are not going to affect a damaged, fragile historic structure, but it will. And I want to know how you're going to address it. Because if that driveway and vibrations of cars going back and forth is going to be, you're inches away from the structures. And that's a concern. That's a real concern. And how are you going to get big equipment through there and not have an impact on who's going to be turning, parking, I think that it has a potential to damage the acequia, which is already damaged. And you could say, well, it doesn't work. Well, the problem with that is you say it, and the guy behind you says it, and the guy behind you says it, and the rest of us have to come back and fix it. And the only way we can fix it is if we stop screwing it up. And we're going to need those. And it's part of the city master plan. So I'm going to stand by the acequias however I can. But preservation strategy on these buildings is going to be a critical component for me to say yes to this project. And I'm not saying like you have to do an architectural preservation plan. I'm saying how are you going to stabilize it? I want to know how you're going to protect it. I want to know how, we do this on existing buildings. We do this all the time. You know how to do this. It takes you 40 minutes to just make a plan.
Yeah,
We need to make a plan.
I don't think we disagree with the board. I should check with my client, but I appreciate the concern about the existing building.
I do. That's something that's why we're here. So.
I'm going to weigh in with something that might not seem as serious to you at this moment, but it's serious to me, and that is that we've been asked by the owner of the Dragonfly restaurant that this project no longer be referred to as the Dragonfly Apartments. And I can understand that concern. And I don't know if you all have heard about that concern or if y'all are willing to rename your project, but that's a commercial name that she uses. And I'm not sure that she wants to be so closely associated with the apartment buildings.
Okay.
Had you heard that?
I have not.
Okay. Well, that's important. That's going to be an important thing for me. Okay, so where do we want to go from here?
Let's listen to other comments.
Well, I also would like to voice my positive support for this project today. And the only thing I ask is what I discussed earlier. I just want to double check that we are just able to do this in the historical overlay. Okay, and I do have this section open. We can discuss it with staff at a later time. Just want to confirm so that we don't have any issues somewhere down the line. That's
Okay,
all.
we will discuss that under matters from commissioners.
That's right. That's right. That's the only stipulation. Otherwise, I also feel very positively about this. Well done. Thank you.
Okay, we're still in a public hearing. Does anyone else wish to speak on this matter from the public? No? Okay. So, what is the commission, what's the next step as far as, what's the majority of the commission think the next step should be? Does anyone have a motion they want to make, or?
What is the date of the next meeting?
I'll tell you in just a minute. I'll tell you right away. The next meeting will be October 16th.
October 16th. Well, I would like to move that we continue this into the meeting of October 16th on the condition that the items that have been discussed of concern, the two buildings on the street, their preservation, impact, and traffic patterns be addressed at that meeting. In addition, double checking on code verification and the ability to proceed with this, with the architecture as it's been presented.
Commissioner Palacios or Prince, do you have something you'd like to add to that or weigh in on that?
I feel that to postpone this is not necessary. I think that we could approve it with the conditions that have been brought up. And the conditions that have been brought up seem agreeable to the owner. And I feel they're agreeable to staff in terms of following through with the actual building permit. To have them come back in principle, I think that we all agree, and I think that we can include that, and I think we can move on and approve this project with these intentions. So I would entertain that we restate that motion, because I don't see that we're going to go any farther other than the clarity of intent. If we have a clarity of intent.
So are you suggesting approval of the certificate with these conditions in place?
Yes.
Yes, that's what he's
Can
suggesting.
you read the conditions again so I can take some notes?
Well, it starts out,
So,
hold on,
but
because
that's,
Commissioner Palacios had some, and so did Commissioner Prince, and so did I. Will you go first?
So how are we
please?
gonna make a motion out of three people's?
Well, we can do
No, I think-
All
that.
right, scrap
We can do
it.
that.
Should we start from
No, we
scratch?
can do that, but Mr. Yarvis has asked that we be very clear on the conditions, and it'll be helpful to Ms. Perkins too. There's been a lot of discussion going on.
I think we can agree on conditions, and then in terms of our motion, we make reference to the conditions as the 6,
I'm agreeable
one
with
through
that.
8
That
or
makes
6
sense.
or whatever they are.
That sounds
That
good.
everybody's agreeable to it.
Okay, will someone make a motion that this project be approved with the following conditions?
Well, let's make the conditions.
Yes, let's do that.
Excuse me, we don't have to make the motion stating all those conditions. We can refer to those conditions as agreed by the owner and the commission, can we not? I mean, we could just say, these are the conditions, items 1 through 8, and then we refer that they will be incorporated.
Yes, that would be fine. We just, like Chair Spray says, we just need to be clear on what the conditions are.
So, Do you have any conditions you'd like to throw forth? I know Mr. Yarovitz is taking notes and Ms. Perkins is also taking notes for potential approval of this case.
I would like to see the parking conform to the town landscape plans or conditions of the town. I'd like to see that done, and that would include the